Yeah, huh? Is it 5 till? I got 2 till.
20 minutes, but not fast.
What do you got there? 3 minutes till. Okay.
You're live.
I'm live. It says storms possible, rain possible after 10 p.m. tonight. We need some more rain. Do we need some more rain?
No.
You need some more rain, Mom?
We do. We haven't got even.
You didn't get any tonight? We
No.
got it. Okay.
Your mic's
My mic's messing up again.
Oh, stupid. Everything up there might be messed up.
Yeah. Ooh, that sounds bad.
Does it sound like a...
Sounds like I got a
Like
frog.
a railroad.
right.
Well, I do have this mic in here.
Is that better? Hey. No, I'm just looking at some of the...
I'm looking on YouTube right quick.
Yes.
Finished on like 66 on the last week.
Last Sunday night?
66.
66. That's awesome. But everybody's gotten into that COVID mode where they don't want to get out of their house on Sunday evening. Or it could be time. That's right. Well, we'll go ahead and open in prayer. Lord, thank you for this morning and the Sunday school class and the message this morning from Bobby. Lord, as we come this evening, as we break open your word, we look at the laws to establish the nation you set forth, you had chosen. Lord, just let us look at these laws and kind of draw from them and understand that your nation, Israel, was established as a holy and godly nation. Now, Lord, just take this study and talk to our hearts. Let us correlate it with our lives in the Spirit along. And I pray this in precious and holy name. Amen. All right. Now, last week we ended, if you got notes, we ended with 15. And that talks about abusing or mistreating your parents. Just because you came from an abused house doesn't give you a rule, it didn't give you the right to go and physically abuse them back. It's saying here that that's part of the honor your father and mother commandment. To honor them is to recognize them. And we were discussing at the end of the hour about how important this plays in to our families today. We see so much dishonor, disrespect, and abuse of the elderly. Well, guess what? They had kids. What happened? Those kids took advantage of their parents. They took their Social Security checks. They took and defrauded the parents, emptied their bank accounts. If you talk to families today, the children, they're saying, I'm waiting till mom and dad dies, and that's my money. Whatever happened to... Right. And that's what we told our kids. There may be some money left, but you boys, don't fight over the money or the possessions. Dad can tell you, I went through that with my sister, and it was very heartbreaking. It was breaking my heart. It broke his. Why are you kids fighting over something that's not worth it? I was trying to do what my biological mom requested of me. She says, please do it the right way. And I tried. And it came out, and it worked itself out. But we have families today. The only time that families get together is funerals. Weddings or funerals. But usually when they're at the funerals, you can tell what happens. There's part of the family on that side, part of the family on this side, and they don't talk. Because they're not in for it. They're not there just to honor the parents. They're there to find out what they got afterwards. So this is disrespectful. We see that children are supposed to be the heritage, the legacy, and gift of God. But our families today have been taught it's better if you don't have kids. Right? You know, me and Oris are looking at that there won't be anybody after the boys if we don't have any grandchildren. There won't be anybody carry on the Jones name. And that's heartbreaking.
Well, unless they have boys, they won't carry on the Jones name.
See, and that breaks my heart. I know it breaks Dad's heart because the Joneses have a long history, a long legacy. But for it to end in a cemetery, that's it. The name my tombstone. All right. So tonight we're going to be talking about a little bit different things. We're going to look at verse 16, starting in verse 16. It's interesting. I never knew that the Bible actually went over this. It says in verse 16, and he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall be surely put to death.
Slavery.
It's kidnapping.
Well, it could be slavery too, though, don't you think?
Right? Is that
Could be human trafficking.
could be human trafficking?
Yeah, mine actually uses the words kidnap, but it could
Yep.
be a lot of different things.
Mine says kidnap in my study Bible.
This King James says steal.
Stealeth.
Stealing.
Just think about right now that the cartel takes men and women and
Yes.
children and sells them.
That's right.
And they're taking them under distress. So is that kidnapping? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Because the kidnapping is the taking by force or taking of someone that does not belong to you or something that doesn't belong
It just doesn't want to go.
to you. And by force.
Yeah, of course.
How about those truck drivers that were smuggling those immigrants in the back of the trailer and they were finding them dead? They were kidnapping them, even though they would say, oh, well, they were paying money. Yeah, they were paying money to the cartel. The cartel said, you get in this trailer, they'll take you across the border. But they were doing it because they were forced into the trailer. We see human trafficking even in our communities. Dad, how easy is it to traffic a human in this nation?
Oh, but if you think about it, I mean, you can go down the street right here and do the very same thing without knowledge of anybody else that you're doing it.
It's sad. So they are kidnapping these people. It says in this law to steal somebody and then sell them. selling them for money, selling them as a barter, as you would an animal. God didn't intend for us to sell each other. We're not supposed to make a profit off of each other. We're supposed to love on each other. We're supposed to take care of each other. We're supposed to watch over each other. When you put this into the mix, this is almost to the point, it is a slavery that we saw back in the 1800s. The slave trade was a money-making deal. The cartels have made it today's money-making deal. Some of those things that I was reading and I was studying over this, think about Joseph. His brothers sold him. They sold him for money. They took him away. How about David and Bathsheba? David told Uriah when he said, put Uriah at the front of the battle. I want him gone. He sold him out to keep Bathsheba. He literally stole. And that's the thing. With Joseph, even though he was sold by his brothers into slavery, he didn't stay enslaved long. God did great things, made him successful, made him flourish. With David, it broke David down to where he lost everything. And as David, as the perpetrator, the one that did the action, David asked for forgiveness. God forgave him, but he still paid for it the rest of his life. We see that the penalty for taking a person that doesn't belong to you and selling them for a profit ends up in death. Like Dad said, when we started to study, Dad was right. Everything that we're reading about, most of it, 90% of these laws, you die, you are executed for what you did.
And now they slap them on the
And now, what's the biggest punishment, Dad, that you've seen for the kidnapping stuff and human trafficking?
Depends on who the kid is.
head.
Now, you have to understand, if an official kid or somebody that's well known is kidnapped, they begin to put federal government into action to find that person. That is a federal offense now. Okay? If something happens to that child is hurt, that child is killed, you're automatically in capital punishment.
So these child abductions that we get the alerts on, would that be considered the same?
You have to understand, when we get an Amber Alert,
Right.
a lot of the times, one of the parents
Right.
has taken that child. You know, now then you run into a whole different scenario.
They don't, they have them for what, like a visitation, they decide to run off.
They do a visitation and they violate the rules.
Right, violate the
But
rules.
now you run into a whole different scenario.
Right.
Now that if somebody is driving down the street in a van, and they reach out and grab that child, throw them in the van and take off, now you've got a different scenario.
Right.
That still can be put on an Amber Alert, just like a senior alert. But with a child, it's an Amber Alert when something like that happens. Now then, you've got federal law enforcement involved.
But seeing the severity of these laws, that God puts on Israel, it seems, when you read them, they seem cold-hearted, don't they? Well, if I do this, I get death. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no judge and jury. It's already set in stone. But that's the only way that God could get Israel the structure they needed. Because if they were to defile themselves, they would be unworthy to God to be used. If you were here for the video on Friday with Debbie, Amir put it down, and I mean clear and concise. The rules that we're reading about specifically were for Israel, a nation God built, God created, God blessed. As we, as Americans, we're not Israel. God didn't establish us. It's different. But we take some of these things to form a nation. But when we look at these, we should look at them. Be glad you're not an Israelite. If you were an Israelite, you'd be put to death for simple things that we see today. But it is serious to God. Verse 17. And he that curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Another absolute. Cursing your parents. This is the verbal attack. Cursing means this. Cursing is to speak of their demise or an evil intention towards them. Well, if you don't, it would be like they say something and you tell them, well, I hope you get what's coming to you. In a way, that's a curse with an evil intention. It's from the heart. The cursing is the verbal action, and God looks at it from the inside. If your heart is, if you say it, your heart is feeling it. So cursing is to their demise or with evil intention. This happens due to the hardness, the anger, the bitterness in our hearts. It takes root in the heart of the person and results in sin with this law. This is why I'm glad that sometimes Israel, we aren't held to the same laws as Israel. Is there anything there's nothing in our nation's laws that says you can't curse your parents and be put to death for it. It's only if you do them physical harm or death, cause death. And so this is how the honor your mother and father commandment, but also when you read Proverbs, it talks about children taking care of their parents and how you should honor them and how you should treat them with respect. In verse 18 and 19, and if men strive or fight together, and one smites another one with a stone, or hits another one with a stone or with his fist, and the man does not die, but keepeth his bed, or he's confined to his bed, which means you maimed him or injured him seriously. Now, if he rises again and he walks upon his staff, then shall he that did the hitting be quit. Only he shall pay for the loss of the time. So you can't be put to death if you just maimed him, just winged him, because he's recovered. But you will have to pay for the loss of time, and you have to be with that person until they heal. You have to ensure that person totally heals. And this here, you got two men fighting, one is injured. It doesn't matter what the person did to injure the other one, whether it was their fist, whether it was a weapon, or whatever. Notice that an argument, it involves, the argument will involve injury, but not death. One of the men injures the other one severely. They're not to be, the one who injured is not to be punished if the other one lives. Okay? So it's like the workman, this is like your personal injury lawyer looking law. You know, if they hurt you, if they do damage to you, they need to compensate you. They need to pay for the time that you lost. The time that you can't work. The time if you're a servant and you get injured, guess what? Then you need to compensate because that servant can't serve. And you notice it says, if he can lean on his staff, that means he gets up, he recovers, he's still healing. It is the responsibility of the person that actually did the damage, the injury, to ensure for the health and the welfare of the person that was injured. This is the compensation. How could this fight of physical contact be avoided? It's simply forgiveness and reconciliation. Forgiveness and reconciliation would have been the one thing that could have been avoided. Because we know that God is always after our best interests for each other. It's not who wins the argument, but can you come to an agreement? He's always about reconciliation. If he wasn't about reconciliation, we wouldn't have Christ. Right? Christ gives us the reconciliation, provides the reconciliation for our sin, for our soul. I thought I had more notes in it. So, in 20, it says, "And a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall surely be punished." It doesn't say death, it just says punished. Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. Okay, you guys have got the different translations, right, Jackie? Okay, what it says is that servant or that slave, some of them say servant, some of them say slave. It says that the owner can beat and not be punished as long as that slave or servant gets up after 2 to 3 days and moves around and is still living.
For use his property.
That's right.
Nonsense. So, but if he dies,
But if he dies, it's him.
right?
But it says, in other words, it says pretty much, don't worry, it's none of your business because it's his property. Don't concern yourself with it. And that's the thing. That one is very hard to actually take. You're sitting there and you're like, but we're not supposed
They're
to.
human beings. Yeah.
Human beings. You know?
See, that's the way it was back when they used to have slaves.
That's right.
I mean, they beat them, they mistreated them.
How many?
They even killed them, and it was okay then.
It was fine to crowd them all into
But
the
they
bottom
loved
of
them,
one
that was
tree.
their property. Yeah.
They were considered property. In 22 it says, if men strive and hurt a woman with a child, she's pregnant, so that her fruit, the child, departs from her, premature labor and birth, and no mischief, that means no health or issue, comes about with the baby or the woman, thou shalt be punished according to the woman's husband. Okay? The woman's husband will demand what will be paid as compensation. And it has to be okay through the judge's determination. This is the first time we see something called judges in this law. We do have the book of Judges in the Old Testament. This is a precursor for how the judges in their positions are going to be. Right? Because we're going to start looking at things where it says, take to the court, take to the judge. That's the precursor for what's going to happen and what's laid out. And then it says, totally different. If something happens to that child and that woman, look what it says. Thou shalt give life for life. Puts a new thing in your mind to think about. When we see these people, these men, and they murder their wives and their unborn children, and we give them one count of murder for the mom, but not for the baby, or the other way around. It becomes reality. If we were living as an Israelite in this new nation, and we're getting these rules, these laws, you'd say, well, who would ever want to hurt a woman and a child?
Well, I may be wrong, Mike can correct me if I am, but isn't it now that if you murder a woman that is pregnant, they use you for 2 accounts of murder because it was not her choice to do so? Yeah.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
While I was an officer in Victory, we had a drive-by shooting. The black teams were fussing with these other people, trying to get their drug material.
Yeah.
They did a drive-by shooting. It killed a woman that was almost term pregnant, and her baby dad killed them both. When I got to the ER, of course, I had to take a report.
Right.
During the trial, they gave them a murder sentence of the woman, the baby, and the baby daddy, even even though the baby was not born yet, it was still a living being
Right.
in this lady. Okay? They had 3 accounts of birth. That baby was one of them. Okay? If the baby had been already born and was a result of that, it would have been a homicide of the 3 people. Okay? But since that baby was unborn, but almost determined, that was a human being, had yet been born, but it was still a live human being in the body. So that was 3 counts of murder. Now then, whenever I had to go to trial, with a federal trial, the 3 people that did the drive-by shooting were all convicted and sentenced to death. Not because of the woman and the man, but because of the baby.
Yeah. But, you know, it's like, well, I always say, like it's not the woman's choice for that baby to die, so therefore it's considered murder. But if she makes a choice to abort it, it's not considered murder. And that's what does not make sense.
Because murder is murder.
Because murder is murder.
Jack, would you do me a favor? Look up Matthew 5:38, I believe.
Now they're killing unborn babies,
Yeah.
coat hangers, whatever.
I know. That's
Okay? That's a living human being.
Right.
From the time of conception.
Exactly.
Yes.
That is a living human being. That is the same thing as murder. Exactly.
They've proven that at conception a baby's DNA starts. And once you have your own DNA, you are a separate human being.
Once that fetus is the size of a pea,
Well, it's conception.
that's a human being.
I agree.
And that's why it doesn't take scripture to tell us
No, it takes common sense.
it's common sense. But what happened to common sense, Dad?
It went out the window.
It went out the top because we're driving in convertibles.
I mean, it's, you just...
Okay. What are you going to define as as common sense?
Well, what it amounts to
That's
is...
exactly what they're doing in court.
Guys,
That's right.
what these women are doing to decide they want to have fun, but do want to pay the consequences of being a parent, it's an excuse.
Okay, here you go.
It's an excuse.
Have you seen the commercial on television
Where
where the fire department has got a box
Yeah.
that they can put these babies in?
Oh,
And
yes.
walk off and leave them.
But, you know, unless they have a chance to be adopted and have a decent home,
And the reason they did that, Dad,
they've got
was
to be
because they were finding babies in dumpsters
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
and in trash bags in alleys. That was the only way they could keep the sanctity of that life from being destroyed.
Yeah.
That's sad when you got to go that far. And you have to extend yourself, your community,
But
that far.
look at our mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to yourself talking. Look at the mentality putting this on television. Here, we got a place that you can take your baby.
Or the commercial, you seen the commercial? You run a pregnancy test and they'll show, well, I hope it isn't, and one that says, I hope it is. And they keep talking about, well, your decision, on this test. And then you can see other options if you didn't want the child. And the thing is there's always those Christian commercials that are saying, choose life. There's always an option, adoption. Adoption. There are parents, there are couples that can't have children. Physically, they cannot have children, and they want a family. What's so bad about adoption over abortion?
Because you're running into the legality.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't wanna go through it.
There's a sign.
Well, the problem is they're gonna put this child up for adoption. Okay? They may say, well, you cannot have contact. That ain't the way that the law works. If this lady gives her baby up for adoption, she still has the right as the mother of that child to make contact with that child when it grows up. Now then,
Yeah, when she's
is that
grown.
right or wrong?
Well, the closed adoptions, but when they get grown up and they look for their parent, I think that's the
Now,
child's.
that's a whole different deal.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that mama going back and saying, I want to see this child.
There's a sign in Snyder. I don't know who puts up these signs. I can't see. It's a billboard. And I
Yes.
can't- and there's one that's next to the stripes across from on 208. And all it says is your mother chose life. And then up below it, it's got God. Like God is saying that. I don't know who does these billboards. There's a lot of people saying.
Abilene did a newscast over this, one of the Abilene stations, and it is a Christian men's discipleship group. It goes and has these signs done to promote life over abortion, promotes things like it'll say, God is the answer.
And there's another one off 84 going towards Post. All it says is, I'm a good listener to God.
Right, I've seen that one.
But we're elected people to go into offices that are making laws for us. Okay? We have no if, ands, or buts. But we're putting them in an office to make laws. Now that we need to look and see what kind of laws
They're
are
making.
made before we go and vote for them. Just because he's a good guy don't mean that he's a Christian and he knows what the Bible says. And it's our fault.
That's right.
Because we don't do our research.
And when we were reading verse 23, and it says, if anything was to follow that was negative for the mother and the child, it says, then thou shalt give a life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. And I had Jack look up Matthew 5:38. What does it say?
Said, ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth.
That's where Jesus got that.
I ain't got me to keep that.
Is that not true?
But that's where Jesus got that. And it was because we don't, sometimes we do things and we're callous about it and we're in feeling about it. But Christ was telling us, God will tell you, it was written here in this law. It was whatever you took from that person, you're going to repay it in kind. When you decided you were going to fight, and I'll use Mike as an example. Mike says something to me, and I walk off, and it upset me or it offended me. And rather than try and say, "Hey, Mike, can we get into a reconciliation? I want to forgive you because," and in my heart was wrong. But can you forgive me? And the thing is if we would have taken care of it right then and there, Mike, the reconciliation, we wouldn't have to go eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and everything else. All or nothing, right? And that's the thing. The whole idea of this, all these laws, wasn't to say, I'm putting you under toe and foot. It was to get them to realize the reconciliation, the forgiving part of it. It needed to be done before it gets to that point. It's like taking and fist fighting and end up hurting somebody else, like the drive-by shooting. That was two people mad at each other, and one was retaliating against the other, and there was an innocent bystander. Two of them. And that's the way we look at these laws. They're not meant to put us underfoot. They weren't meant for Israel to constrain them or anything. It was to get them to realize that God's character is always looking for forgiveness, always reconciliation. The only reason he put death in there is because those were absolute things. If he didn't, the people would start defiling themselves. Mike, whenever Israel would rebel, or Israel wouldn't listen and adheres to some of these laws, what happened to them?
Something bad happened.
Something bad happened to them. They wound up getting murdered. They wound up getting captured. They became slaves. Not servants, but slaves. They became exiles. And the temple was compromised with idols, the pagan religion. And so this is why God put these rules, these laws together for them. It was to keep them undefiled. We always like to take that scripture that I had Jack read, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We always use that. We beat someone over the head with it. The truth of the matter is, do you understand that scripture that Jack read meant do not resist the evil person? It's about an evil person. An evil person has the sin already written in their heart, right? That's the person that doesn't have the Spirit of Christ in them, doesn't have the Spirit of God. Here we are in Israel, or we've got Israel becoming a nation. And God says, don't resist an evil person. But what's evil? We're Israel. He just consecrated us. There's evil within your nation. We learned that on Friday as well. The difference between Israel, the Israelite, the Israeli, and Jews. Jews, by definition, is praising God, praising Jesus. An Israelite doesn't necessarily have to believe in God, doesn't have to believe that Christ has already come, but a Jew does. Right? It's the definition. Just because you're in the nation of Israel, does that make you an Israelite? Does it mean you have to obey them laws? Israel, the 12 tribes, obey them laws. They obey the laws. If you remember back in Exodus when we talked about the Passover, the night of the Passover, and it was the first Passover, the Passover of unleavened bread. Do you remember the specifics of who could take the Passover meal? It was the house of Jacob, Israel, the 12 tribes only. Unless the servants of that household became adopted, had the circumcision done, they were invited, but no foreigners or aliens were allowed to take of it. Because they didn't understand. It would have defiled the whole purpose of the Passover meal. So these are the same things we look at when we're looking at the scriptures and these laws. Also, the verse that you read, Jack, the eye for the eye and the tooth for the tooth. But it turns around and tells us that we need to turn the other cheek. Right? It tells us to turn the other cheek. If he slaps you on the right, give him the left. If he asks you to go for a mile, you go 2.
I might do that.
Okay? If he asks for anything, you give him more. It's not being submissive. It's being humble. Right? Right, Mike? Would it be humble, humility?
But I also don't have it wrong. I don't think I am. I don't think they make you stand there and let somebody beat the tar out of you.
Oh, no. You have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking when they do it mean-spirited.
Right.
Okay? Right, Dad?
Are y'all ever watching the cop show?
I have.
Okay, now listen to me. Why do you think they say at least 3 times to do something? Stop or I'll tase you. Stop or I'll tase you. Stop. Taser, taser, taser.
I think
Now,
that
listen
should
to
be
me.
enough.
When you say 3 times to do something,
Yeah.
you've given them the opportunity of the left and the right cheek.
That's right.
That's
Okay, now then you're talking about head-on collision. But that's why they do it. And a lot of times they'll do it more than that. But we were taught, you tell them 3 times, this is what we're going to do. If you do not abide by what we're saying, then you have unlawfully.
Agreed not to. Now, don't you think 1 time should be enough?
No. I do, but they.
No, I was asking you. Don't you think
Yeah.
1 time?
Oh, yeah. Once I say, this is what I'm fixing to do,
Then that's
you
it.
can bet that's what's fixing to happen.
And it should. And that's what it should be.
Jesus said, turn the other cheek because he wants us to show mercy like we're showing mercy.
And also, insults are better left forgotten than taking them to court and judge. When you take anything before a court or a judge, you're taking time that you have to give up, time that somebody else has to give up. And sometimes it's so frivolous. It's like going to the principal's office, and Mom knows this, going to the principal's office and the principal saying, you guys really brought this to me? It doesn't make any difference. Is it going to make any difference in that child's life? What does it matter? And we look at it and we laugh at it and we're like, really? Over a stupid piece of an ice cream cone or all of that? Just for a penny? In for a penny, in for a pound?
It's nowadays, adults act like children. Take everything.
You want to see it? Go to a retirement center and watch a bingo game. That's what happens. Okay? And that's the thing, is we do that with our own lives sometimes. When we deal with people. And it's repeated, and we can try to beat that into our heads. It just doesn't matter. What matters is God. What matters is Jesus, our relationship with Him. Like we talked this morning about planting the seed unintentionally. We talked about, well, how simple or how complex does it have to be? It can be very simple. Humility.
But we as humans let our emotions override our thoughts.
Yes, we do.
Our heart. We let our emotions override what's reality, what we really need to be doing. And that I'm telling you, that's me. I let
Emotion.
my mind get into gear before I stop and say, hey, I need to stop and do this. And recently, I did stop. And I said, okay, guys, here's the rock. You without sin. Here it is. Throw it.
And
That's what I had to do.
That's the part. We're more willing to destroy a person than we are to try to reclaim the person. That was part of when I taught the lesson over forgiveness, and all of those lessons over forgiveness. You put yourself in the prison camp as soon as you throw the rock, as soon as you let the anger and stuff overtake you, your mind and your heart, you've already lost, and you start losing ground. And this is so important. We can apply what we're reading tonight. These are laws to the Israelites, but we can use them for the law of our hearts. Remember when God said, I will write their law, my law, on their hearts. Christ told us he wants the law, his law, written on our hearts. And that's what we're talking about. Always looking for forgiveness, reconciliation. In verse 20, it says a man, let's go to 26. If a man hits the eye of his servant, or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. This is what this is saying. You got a servant, you got mad, you hit him, or her, knocked their eye out, did serious damage, incapacitating them, that affects how they function for the rest of their lives, they gain their freedom. You're free to go. You know what that does? It promotes the person that has the servant to treat them with respect, honor, and take care of their welfare. Sounds like a boss or a CEO, how they should treat their employees. Right? The thing is how many of us know any business that takes care of their employees like their family?
My boss. My boss does. I mean, you go to work for him, I mean, he pays people, I mean, he helps their families. You go to him with any problem, he's going to help you. He helped get a guy out of jail 2 or 3 times.
Well, who was the one boy he paid the expenses to take your daughter to?
Robert Cummings paid for to take his daughter to Ohio
to a specialist that she needed to go to.
Do we have businesses that are like that today?
Not many.
And I don't mean this disrespectfully. In the younger years, like in the 70s and the 80s, did you work at businesses that did treat you like family. Some of them. You worked at some that were all about how much profit you were going to bring in if you did your work, and then go above and beyond that. I see those are the things. Being 20 years in the military, in a way, the government was a good boss, but in a way, it wasn't. It wasn't when I got to my first base and they said, if the military wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one back in San Antonio. And a kid. Okay?
Yeah.
But they were good to me. You know why? I have health care. I have retirement. I don't have to worry about if something happens that happened to me before, or even if it happens to me now, I can go to the doctor and they'll take care of it. You know, it's beyond. You know, some people say, you know, they get out. Well, I don't like the way they treat us. They treat us so horribly. They barely pay us, so we can barely eat. We can barely support our families. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, and this came into play. Those supervisors would say, when you signed your contract of oath of enlistment, did it ever say anything about we will pay you for your time? All it says is that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, without purpose of invasion, evasion, or reservation. There was nothing in that contract that said they were going to pay me money. Right, Dad?
Our work.
Or pay compensation.
Some of these guys been going in the military now. That'll be back. You know how much I got every 2 weeks? $241. That was it.
When I went in, you're lucky to make $100 a month.
Now we couldn't hardly pay rent. Yeah.
But the thing is taxpayers see the military person, well, you're very well paid and compensated. And me and Artis have had to tell people, civilians, do you know what your taxpayer dollar, you know how much of that we get to see? It gets paid to us. Did you know that they tax us on your tax money? So they're paying us tax dollars and then they're taxing it again. That's 2 times it gets taxed. By law, it's only allowed to be taxed 1 time. So the government's double dipping a little bit. But then you look, well, you get housing allowance. You get compensation for food. Okay, those 2 things do not keep up with the cost of living, do they? So these are the things that
In defense of the government, they did say, when you get out of the military under honorable conditions,
yes.
we will take care of you medically. You're entitled, period. You're entitled to that.
Right. It doesn't matter. These are the things that, you know, like I said, we're looking at this law, and it's interesting. It's interesting how, when we read it, we can put things together. Now, it says in verse 27, and if he smites a manservant and knocks out his tooth, then he shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. I'm sorry, Jack, you cannot be let go because you have no teeth. As long as they didn't knock them out. And you can't go over there and start taking and pulling them out and then saying, hey, look, you knocked teeth out. Verse 28, we start looking at animals. It says if an ox gores a man or woman, and they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quit. So, animals that cause injury, man, that's gotta hurt. So,
Owners are not responsible.
why? Do you know why the owner wouldn't be held responsible if the ox gored a person and killed a person? You see the liability for it? It's because that ox could have had a disease or an illness that affected its behavior and caused injury and death to somebody. Now it goes next, and we're going to see it. It goes next, and it says, if the owner knew that animal was aggressive and refused to tie it up and pin it up and maintain it, then the owner is responsible. Sounds very familiar in today's society about the aggressive dogs and aggressive animals. You can't, and that's the thing, is when a dog is aggressive and it mauls a small child, do you hold the owner responsible? Do you hold the animal responsible?
If the owner knows that dog is a vicious animal,
I thought that's not what you meant. If the dog's aggressive, then you hold the owner responsible.
That's right.
but if you're out in the open and there's a
Yeah.
dog wandering around, and it becomes aggressive towards you, who you gonna,
You got that?
I'm gonna take care of the dog.
You got
But,
Well, yeah.
but if an owner knows that this animal is aggressive, is vicious, will attack, then that owner is responsible for that animal to hold him in check.
If they, I think it's a city ordinance in Snyder, if you have a dog, no matter whether it's aggressive or not, and it's off of a leash, you will help responsible if by somebody.
If you're the owner of that
The
animal,
owner
you're
of that dog,
absolutely
if
right.
it is off of a leash.
And that's the thing. That's called respect of each other. It's respecting each other
Right.
and the safety and health and welfare of each other. And yeah, they're talking about an ox here, but it could refer to any animal that we own. Animals don't just become aggressive on their own if they have an illness. The illness is reflected in like rabies and other illnesses that affect the animal's thinking and process. But if you watch an animal, you can tell if there's a disease that's affecting the animal to make it aggressive.
Well, a dog can be aggressive if it becomes cornered or scared.
Or they're
If
scared.
it's like a,
Snake.
they have a tendency to bite.
A snake. Rattlesnake won't bite at you or strike at you unless it feels threatened, right now.
Otherwise it's gonna run.
If you got it cornered, it'll strike at you.
Back off and leave it alone and take off. It will. I'll try it. It will take off.
We run across them sometimes, eh?
I'm gonna have to disagree with that statement.
Why?
Because there's aggressive rattlesnakes out there.
Yeah.
You go by them, and you're not messing with them, and they will go right through you and strike at you.
That's our vicious animal. That's a vicious animal.
If I didn't have a gun, I'd back off and leave it alone.
It is. But I mean, not every snake is just like any other animal. Not every one of
What
them.
is exactly, is the same?
You know, there's aggressive ones in there.
Yeah.
You know, when we used to load bulls, that's just some of those bulls that are just aggressive. They have no disease. They're
Just aggressive
they
because
want to do what they want to do, and as soon as you put them in a pen, they're on the scrap. And the cow's the same way.
And they don't have disease.
You know, some of them do, some of them don't.
That's right.
But the aggressiveness is not. It's just something that's in them. You know.
Sure.
A lot of times, I'll tell you a story about an aggressive snake. One time I saw a great big rattlesnake. It had a head about this big around. And I killed that snake. And while I was messing with it, it had I think it had 16 or 18 rattlers. There was another one about just like it come out of the grass right before. Hissing and had its head up. But I didn't mess with that snake. I didn't see that snake.
Possibility. Because I know they can have AIDS.
But I just think some things are just aggressive.
That's one of them
No,
fight or flight deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that law ends with, if it has killed somebody, do not eat the meat from that animal. That is a health reason.
You know what that is? What the reason for that? You talk about being a health reason.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Right.
It's the adrenaline part of it that is in that meat.
Yeah.
And you eat that, or another animal gets that. They get that extra dose of adrenaline, and that causes them to be
Aggressiveness, and it's contaminated, is what it is. It's contamination. My guy, I'm so glad you
Well,
helped me
adrenaline doesn't come
on that one.
Yep.
Because, I was thinking of it from one aspect, but Mike is right.
Yeah.
There are those animals that are just naturally aggressive, bred that way.
Well, I think that's even with humans.
Yes.
I'll tell you one that's naturally aggressive is a badger.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I've never been around that.
Oh,
A
yeah.
badger will come and try to get right on you. You better have something to do.
And so these are the things that are neat that we get to study
Yeah, it is.
in these, because we don't get these taught to us all the time, but they do affect our Christian lives. How we would see the initial heart of some of the laws that we see that are so corrupt right in our country. Was it meant to be that way? No. But men have got their little fingers into it, and they got their little microscopes out because some relative was fixing to get their head put on the chopping block. And they frantically said, "Oh, wait, we need to adjust that." And they did. And made it less aggressive for an execution or a death. So, that's all I got for you tonight. Next week when we meet, we're gonna continue from there. We're talking a lot about animals and livestock, and the reason being is because it's going to play an important part when we get to the Holy Land, and then they start taking land for farming and grazing for livestock. You have to have some kind of respect for boundaries on that. All right. I'll go ahead and dismiss us and a prayer, and we'll be done. Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the study. Lord, just be with us as we look at your laws that you gave to your chosen people. And then we can see how some of that has laid into the heart our country's laws. Well, Lord, let us look at it from your perspective and the heart that you gave us to be a follower of Christ, to be the reflection of Christ to others. Now, thank you for the study, and I thank you for all those that were here. Thank you for those that watch us on Facebook. I just pray blessings on them, to watch and protect them, and just forgive them when they ask for forgiveness. Pray this in precious and holy name. Amen.
We used to